afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 1 hour discussion on space tech. I know these are very difficult times, and at a time of crisis, should we be talking about space? Of course, space is a very important frontier, as our panelists will discuss. We have four outstanding speakers today, and first of all, my name is Madan from Your Story. Thanks to Vinay and the whole team at Crowd Product for putting this event together. We have with us Srinath, who is from Agnikul, Vishesh Rajavan from Specially Invest, and we also have Chris Nair, Nichi Singh, and Nikita C. Very briefly, Chris Nair, founder and CEO of Kava Space. Can you just wave your hand if you're able to wave your hand? Uh, he is the CEO of Kava Space, which is a company targeting easy and affordable launches of satellites. This is one of India's first private space missions. He also has a tiny venture capital fund and worked in corporate development. Has a background in physics and military strategy. I also asked the speakers to share some fun information about them. So Chris says these days he's just washing dishes, given the circumstances, of course, and he's fighting the millennial urge to start a podcast, which is a very real struggle. So thanks, Chris, for joining us. Along with that, we also have Nitish Singh. Nitish Singh is the co-founder and CEO of Astrogate Labs. They're working on high-speed communications for satellites. He's a graduate of IIT Kharagpur and has 6 years of background in the aerospace industry. He also has been a part of the team which was part of the Google Lunar X Prize mission. And last but not least, we have Nikita C with us. Nikita is a social entrepreneur. She runs an NGO called Society for Space Education, Research and Development, SSERD. They promote space education among the youth. She has taught space issues to around 8,000 students in India, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, Mauritius, and also teaching some African youngsters in STEM education. She's an outstanding entrepreneur in this space, has won a number of awards, including the Youth Icon Award from the Karnataka Women's Achiever Award. She also is the winner of the Kalpana Chawla Scholarship to do space studies in France, and she also has a number of appreciations from the government of Karnataka. Fun facts, she loves dogs and she has four at home. Hopefully, they're leaving her alone at this time. Her hobbies are teaching, traveling, riding, and helping others. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's who we have on our panel here today. Let's maybe hear first from each of our panelists on how are you doing in these difficult times. We'll come back to that in a second, but just a quick personal check-in. How are you coping? How are you doing? Let's start with you, maybe Nikita.
It's very hard. My work is most of the time to go out and meet people, talk people, which is not happening now. But everything is trying to become online, virtual meetings. So yeah, it's going.
And Nitish, what's with you? What's happening?
Yeah. So, well, as per everyone in the difficult situation right now, I think mostly we are also following work from home, getting regular updates, and making that the team is okay on our end, working on solving more problems. But again, there's a problem like there's a hardware company. We cannot do much more hardware testing right now. So more time we are able to involve on going and involving on a more creative thought process right now. So if we are able to innovate our product roadmaps for which will come out over the next 6. So that's the timeline we are able to utilize more.
Srinath, how are you? Are you guys grounded? Are you still working?
Yeah, we're doing, I think Nitish summarized it well. For whatever the same applies to us as well. As a hardware company, you need to be on the ground and doing work. So there we are a little slowed down. Also on the supply chain part, we are a little hit, right? So nothing is coming into the company in terms of hardware. One thing we are really doing well now is fine-tuning processes and making people a little more disciplined. So as a startup, you generally tend to do a lot of things in a rush, and processes are always a little all over the place. But I think this has given us some time to fine-tune that. So we're actually using this time to do that. And of course, it's a bunch of design to be fine-tuned as well. So all of that we are able to do.
Okay, great. Chris, are you with us? Can you tell us what you're doing?
Right. Things are good. We've been working from home for now about 25 days. Given we kind of made it mandatory for most of our team members to work from home start of this month. We are pretty software heavy, so that is a blessing at this time. I would say about 90% of our product is software, so that kind of helped. There is already a standard we also have a lot of people working remotely from the day one. That also kind of helps. So we, in that front, we are going fine. Um, our dependency in hardware, like I said, is very little. So good.
Okay, good. And last but not least, we have Vishesh. Vishesh, are you with us? Can you share with us what you're doing these days? Hello, Vishesh.
Hi, sorry, I was in mute, so I'm not sure you guys heard
No
me.
worries, no worries. Yeah.
So, I think it's very interesting times. I've been reading a lot about what black swan is, and learning a lot more statistics than I ever did before. Other than trying to keep up with cleaning dishes and keeping the house clean. Well, but it is. I think it's truly interesting times. A lot of things going around us. A lot of these things having ripple effects on the economy and the way we live. So it's an interesting time to be living and serving time at home, and I think we'll hopefully learn a lot and adapt ourselves better.
Okay, great. So we put a very diverse set of speakers, some in hardware, some in software, some communications, some investment. So let's begin with each one of them. Maybe each of you can tell us how long ago did you start, and where do you see your venture headed, and where are you today? So let's begin with you again, Nikita.
Yeah, so SSCRD is an NGO which is working in the domain of space education, and particularly with school children and college students. So that's whom we are catering to with the education in mind. Why? Because we think that space is something that's going to be very important. Like we all are in, with different startup ideas or different research field, uh, and with a lot of things that ISRO been doing, we found that a lot of students are interested in space field, astronomy field at a very young age. So we thought of looking at these students and guiding them and help them in achieving their goals. And that's how we started off. And we provide various space courses, space related courses for these students.
Great. How about you, Nishik?
Yeah. So as we started Astrogate Labs about 2.5 years now. So Astrogate Labs again is a space technology company, typically aiming at developing satellite communication systems. In this case, we are developing high-speed communication systems, more focused on not the RF but optical communication technologies. And as for any communication, you need two sides. One is your satellite, which would be the transmitter. You also need to augment that with your ground stations across the globe. So that's what we are working at, and we have actually completed our development on our satellite transmitter. Qualification is what we were going ahead with. Like we'll come back on track another 1 month or so.
All right, Srinath, where are you? How long do you have before you hit your targets?
Yeah, so we started in 2017 December formally, and yeah, so I think if Corona had not happened, we're targeting a launch probably end of 2021. Now I think that might move a little, right, given the delays. But yeah, other than that, I think what we're doing is developing a small launch vehicle that can put small satellites in space on demand, so that there is no need for a ride share for them. So today, small satellites have to kind of come together and go, as a ride share in a big rocket to space. So that we are trying to change the dynamic completely and say, hey, we'll build a small rocket for small satellites and they can go on. So we started our testing and stuff already because we work with the IT campus. Those things are possible at a much lesser cost, and we just raised a round of funding as well. So all of that is also helping with the testing. I think we'll see. Hopefully, early part of 2022, this should be doable.
Great. How about you, Chris? Are you halfway through your journey, or where are you?
Right. We are fairly young. We started last year. I think we are about 10, 11 months old. Kava Space, in a grander scheme of things, is the easiest, fastest, and cheapest way to use satellite for any business. Kama's premise is if businesses use extra layer of data captured from space, they can 100x their business outcomes. This is not the case today. For decades, for like even years or a few months ago, you want to use satellites for your business, say even in the basic form of geospatial data, it will remind you to the old internet times, right? You literally have to assemble a team of PhDs, understand the image delivered and all. What we are trying to achieve is take all the complexities out and give an output to our customers, which is usually in financial services and agriculture and infrastructure, and some part of it government as well, in a completely simple to consume business outcomes. So that's what we've been trying to do. That's our core thesis. Our primary core thesis is that to get data from the space, you don't have to be an advanced degree holder. Anybody can actually do it. The internal this thing is make it so simple that even an MBA can do it. So we are trying to achieve that. We are testing it with a bunch of customers. We have now hoping to grow that particular customer base to at least about 100 more this year, and possibly 10x it in the following quarters.
Great. Vishesh, how about you? Are you investing now? Are you freezing? You're waiting to see what happens?
I think, so the good part is we're a 2018 vintage funds. We have a good amount of dry powder left to be participating in newer opportunities. Having said that, many people on this call are partners of ours, and they're doing some great progress. So, a smart investor is one who sort of doubles down on the good ones and doesn't have to go hunting every day. So, I think we'll sort of find a mixed balance between doing new things and doubling down on some of our winners.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah, but it's interesting times. I think we're here to sort of stay and learn.
Yeah, interesting times, tough times. So, Nikki, how is this affecting your prospects in India and overseas? I mean, some of you I know are doing work largely in the Indian market. Some of you doing a work overseas. So, how are you splitting the market? Is this a good time to target overseas customers or domestic? Where are you right now?
Yeah, as of now, we've been working with students over here in India. Also, we had our branch in Philippines, so we had few students learning from us in the Philippines country. Otherwise, yes, we had a few students from Sri Lanka, Mauritius, in different countries. And right now, we have looked into online teaching, making use of the things that we are around. So again, for the online sessions, we have a lot of them who have joined from different countries, and also working with a new country, that's Ghana. Again, wherein Ghana, as well as another African country, wherein we are starting to work from the very grassroots. That is from in teaching topics from the school, including space related topics in the textbooks. So that's how we started working online. Yeah, everything through online.
Okay, great. In your case, Nitish, how do you break up your market?
So in terms of the market, we are developing basically component for a satellite or a services for a satellite, right? If you just look at the numbers, the satellite constellation operators are more outside, where they have already launched the satellites on this. So early on, we have taken the decision, those are the go-to-markets that we are having. And at this stage right now, actually, we are doing some detailed discussions with them, so how they can include our product in their new launches and how to do about it. Having said that, India definitely is a growing market-based technology that we see. And having early on in this area with satellite system provider, ground segment operators, or even the launch vehicle providers here, we see tremendous opportunity in collaborating with them. That's what we are open to, and we are exploring this in India right now.
And Srinath, what's your market breakup?
We have a lot of the small side people in Europe and the US. So right now we do have a few initiatives in India, but most of these small satellites are commercial, right? Most of them definitely come from US and the Europe. So at this point in time, actually, we have used this last 3-4 weeks to actually intensify some of our conversations with them, because even they are hit with the same problem, right? Everyone is so sort of helped us actually spend a little more time with customers than we usually do, and it's helping us understand their needs better and so on. I mean, the sad part is everyone is badly hit, so probably a good thing to talk to each other and build relationships. So that is our marketing.
Chris, how is it panning out for you, India and abroad?
Right. Most of our customers are kind of distributed across, like, thankfully the early customers, about 60% of them are in India. Most of the time the Zoom and other video chat tools kind of helping, but it really slowed them, some of the US conversations down, because they're also going through a similar panic like we discussed. Like Srinath said, it's time to kind of be with them, understand, assist them if they require, and slowly wait for the recovery.
And Vishesh, how is your portfolio looking? You investing mostly in Indian companies, or you was investing in Indian companies who are targeting overseas customers? What's the breakup?
I think broadly put, we do two kinds of investment. We do companies that are building software, and these are companies that are generally serving global markets in India. And we do companies that are building hardware. And the ones that are hardware generally also have a large Indian market in addition to a global market, but are generally more India first. But I think what's relevant is that we're largely B2B. We don't do anything B2C. So the impacts for us are largely from standpoint of, hey, are your customers going to evaporate? Are they going to take more time? Is your revenue curve going to be very different from what you've assumed? And then how do you sort of recalibrate yourself? The good part at our end is, the cost curves have multiple levers that are in their early stages of life that one can sort of tweak and play with them. And I think we've sort of, in hindsight, been lucky, I must say.
Okay, my next question is about the role of the government. And by the way, for all of you in the audience out there, feel free to type in your questions on the chat window, and I can take the questions in between as well. But my next question for our speakers is about government. Of course, now governments around the world are very busy with this COVID crisis, but they also have other important roles to play in the area of space through policies, regulations, incentives, and so on. So my question to the panelists now is, how is the policy and regulatory framework working out for you guys? Can be improved? What are some obstacles you're facing? How can government become a big enabler for you? So, Nikki, you want to jump in there? I think a lot of governments would have something to do in for you.
Yeah, there is no much I can say, with the policies, particularly with the education, because there's no much focus given into this, so there's no discussion or as well. So, but then we are trying to approach them in the section of updating the content that is related to space, which is there in the current textbooks. That is one way that we are trying to work with the government and education groups and education departments, which is going to take much more time at this condition, is what we think.
Nitish, what's your experience so far with government?
Yeah, so actually, that's a very broader question right now. Regulatory is definitely much of the problem right now when you talk about Indian markets, and almost everyone here would be aware of that. In terms of what has been taken, what the steps are taken, I do see some certain steps taken by a few agencies who are highlighting the problems of how do we, if being a constellation operator, how do you launch a satellite, how do you operate it, how would the licenses come around and all that. But as a startup, you need to understand that time is key for any startup, right? Okay. So how much time would those licenses come out to be? Is there an organization that needs to be set up when they would start releasing the license and all those? So I think the basic point right now that these bodies should address is what is the steps like for a startup. If let's say a startup is launching in 6 months, can you do a space object registration in 3 months, grant them the licenses, even experimental licenses, and see further. That's the thing that I want from the government agencies and bodies to look at.
Okay. Srinath, are you getting good signals from government for what you're doing?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, I think a lot of us on this panel actually might have been invited to this ISRO event that was cancelled actually in the last minute because of the whole shutdown thing now. So the government is taking steps. Yeah. So it was actually like a startup event, and it was actually being organized in Bangalore. I was actually very interested in going there. Okay, anyway. hopefully it'll happen again when things become closer to normal, right? The point is that government is taking steps. Whether it's at the right pace, like what Nitesh said, is a good question to ask. But it's not like they're completely, it's not like they have a mandate to support startups right now. But I think they're trying to make something like that. On the other side of it, there is this whole initiative to privatize stuff that ISRO has already, already done. At least R&D, where the R&D is over and we're purely in a manufacturing, area, right? ISRO is trying to privatize that and give it out to bigger companies. And actually, they did encourage participation of smaller companies at some level. But how that has to, actually, how the waterfall will look like and where it will trickle down to startups like us, if we want to do a piece of it, is yet to be figured out still. But I see a lot of steps in the right direction. Maybe not as fast as it ideally should be, but we'll wait and see, right? I think for a lot of us, still there is a little bit of time left before we go to product level. So maybe those things will align. I'm giving optimistic view here and hoping things will align at that.
Chris, is government a good enabler for you in your sector?
Right. I think most of the points Srinath and Nitish covered. I think bureaucracy would like to kind of move in the right direction, and the pace may not match with the pace technology entrepreneurs expect them to be. But I strongly see that they are making the right moves in the right direction, getting more feedback from younger companies or technology platforms rather than the last generation of services companies, which is servicing the agency. So they're willing to take in feedback. I'm fairly certain this is not the top priority of this week or probably this month, but in the months to come, I'm confident that they will be crafting the right set of steps / regulation / policy to assist younger companies like ours.
And Vishesh, what do you see in this space? Are you seeing governments very favorable to this sector? Are you able to make some recommendations for them to speed up investment from entrepreneurs in this space?
Well, I have a view that's a couple of degrees behind some of these guys because they're on the front line, right? But I think what I am cognizant of is space is not like delivering vegetables or food on the ground. It's a lot more complicated, and hence it's not as easy as giving out a license to deliver food or to pick up somebody and drop somebody. It's a little more complicated, and hence I would, in my mind and in my investment strategy, factor the time and the approach that they are currently taking. I'm possibly seeing the brighter side to it, that they're open to sort of having participation from private, and a lot of the people on this call are attending various meetings and sessions with them officially, which is good news. I think the second thing to step back and see is, are you doing good or bad, right? And if you're doing good and the law is not clear, then it's a matter of time. And in this case, I tend to believe that these companies are here to do good to the world in the approach to what space can do to Earth. Then it's a question of making sure that the regulatory environment takes care of the outliers and the outlier events as a result of this innovation. And hence, I'm sort of positive. I don't have a view on exact timeframes on who's going to do what. But I think directionally it's in the right space. The other piece that's sort of also the guiding light is what's happening in other parts of the world. And in other parts of the world as well, there is increased encouragement for private participation. And hence, it's a matter of time when things will open up. I don't want to necessarily comment on what needs to be done and by when. I think it'll happen along the way.
Yeah, it's a question of time, but time doesn't seem to be on our side right now. But anyway, any questions from the audience, please feel free to share it by email to Vinay or on this chat, etc. We are about 20 minutes, 25 minutes through the program. We still have a good half an hour of discussion left ahead. So my next question for the panel is on talent. Obviously, not many of you will be hiring people right now, but what's your outlook for your talent pipeline right now? Do you have the skills that you need? Are you facing some shortages which could do with some filling? Can the audience get involved by writing to you, getting involved in projects and so on? In the case of Nikki, maybe can they send you some resources? Can they be teachers, students? How are you facing the talent issue right now?
Yeah, as of now, or let's say before the issue that we're facing now, we had good number of volunteers, which we can say, who are supporting us. And since now everyone is at home, the number of volunteers has been more than what we had, which is good thing for us. And they are kind of helping us in whatever way in which they are good at. For example, someone is good at content writing, so they're able to support us by writing the content, related to space, which could be helpful for the students. And there are a few volunteers who are helping us out with the technology part. So yes, volunteers are there, and we would keep it open for everyone who's, or to learn, or to support us in any way that you are interested in. If you are interested in space and astronomy, in the outreach and education, do reach us out. Thank you.
True. I think that's a good point. This sector has a lot of goodwill and energy out there, and people want to help, especially in this time of crisis.
Yeah.
So, Nitish, are you doing anything in this stage to tap the goodwill of people out there? What are you doing for
So,
your own talent pipeline and so on?
as space technology requires a much more broader skill set, we are always on the lookout for experienced engineers or even hackers who can solve technology issues and or anything alike. So, anyone who's out there looking for opportunities, happy to listen to you guys. You can mail me, follow our website, mail us, and then we'll follow back. For students, mostly, if they want to reach out and understand what the space technology has to offer, what sort of a role there is, and how they can develop their skill set, that's also something we actively look at. So, yeah, both of the opportunities are open.
Okay. Srinath, what are you doing to get more people involved in your scheme?
I think is so building like a launch vehicle. It's like an amalgamation of almost all streams of engineering. So we are constantly hiring, I would say. I mean, yeah, right now everything is a little slow, but usually I think there is a constant need for people. I always feel like we're 20 people short of who we actually ideally to be. So we use LinkedIn a lot, and also we're participating in proper recruitment programs at colleges to get freshers. So that has helped us get a reasonable talent pool. And of course, we keep going back to retired ISRO people to get our designs vetted and to get, make sure we're going the right direction. So as a combination of these two things, things are going up.
Chris, are you engaging with the audience for any of your activities at the moment?
Well, we are always looking for right people to join in, right? So we are not calling ourselves, we are not about making a better satellite. We are not uh, a traditional satellite maker at all. What we are looking at is to bring in whatever we get from space and distribute it into the largest impactful areas, whether it's through business or through community activities. So we are always looking for like great talent in whether it's in software or in business development, product, operations, engineering. We are always looking for bright people to join our mission.
And Vishesh, what are you doing? Are you looking for more analysts? Are you looking for more people, maybe raise another fund or something in the future?
No, I think no change. We're an 8-member team. We're quite stable at the moment, so I think we'll sort of wait and play it out.
Okay, so the next question after that, I guess, would be funds. Funds for our startups in the audience here, in the panel rather. How are you in terms of funds? Are you looking for more funds at the moment, or how are you doing cash management? How are you managing your accounts and finances right now? Are you cost cutting? Hopefully, not laying off people, but what are you doing for financial prudence in this time, Nikki?
Yeah, for us, we had many programs that were lined up for this summer because students are available in the summer to learn something new. And we had all this plan started from last December, and we had to cancel all of them. So, yes, one way that all the students who had registered can get the payments, there is the financial crunch and all that. And otherwise, apart from this program, we always look at reaching out these students who are from a rural background or underprivileged students, for which we are looking for CSR funds. And now that we are enabled, like any NGO or a social organization must have 12A DTE certification to get CSR funds. So we just completed our 3 years of self-run and getting all the certifications done, and we are looking for more of the space or aerospace related companies or startups to give their CSR funds to SSCRD, wherein we only are handling or focusing more on space education and the social activities. So this is something that we are looking for, CSR activities and companies. Coming to government, we did approach governments, and the government is pretty interested in our programs, but again, they would ask us to find the financial source from corporate. So everything is kind of interconnected and a loop. So we're trying to break the loop as early as possible.
Nitish, what's your story in terms of funding from
Right.
outside, in terms of managing your own stocks of cash right now?
Right. So, financial wise, we are pretty okay. We are already in terms of the development of the product, and also looking at the launch early next year. Having said that, we're also on a fundraising trajectory as of now to close these things and also deploy the ground station later next year. So we are looking forward to that.
Good. How about you, Srinath?
Yeah, so we just finished, a round of raising money. So at least in the short term, there are no real crunches that we are expecting. In fact, we are not able to spend it anywhere because of the hardware, supply chain being completely cut off, right? So yeah, I think this is okay, but obviously there's going to be at least one more round of funds required to get to orbit. So starting to think about strategies there in these uncertain times. But yeah, other than that, just trying to keep the purse really tight and see how things go.
How about you, Vishesh? Where's your pipeline right now? Are you looking for raising another fund next year, maybe, or what's your window of opportunity?
So, I think when I just sort of step back and realize that these outlier events are possibly happening once in 20, 12 years, and we sort of have to continue to learn to be investing in cycles. I don't think there are any knee-jerk reactions on the strategy for an activity like this. What's important to, however, take note is that we buy ourselves the call option or the insurance to survive the storm. And of course, in the first week of March, people I spoke to said 3 to 6 months, then it became 6 to 12 months. Now it's reasonably certain that you possibly want to buy time up to 18 months if you can afford it. So our generic advice to portfolios is to make sure that they have enough cash that can get them that far, or immediately look to existing investors to buy themselves at time. That's as far as managing the current situations. With every risk, there's also reward. So I think there are certain technologies that people expected to be 5 years off, which are sort of moving sooner and faster for adoption now than ever before. And I think as a technology investor, a lot of our minds are also being applied onto those in addition to sort of working with the portfolio. So we're training ourselves to be in business for the long term. So yeah.
Okay, got it. So for those in the audience who are just joining us now or joined a bit late, we're in the middle, we're halfway through a panel discussion on space tech startups and opportunities. We're joining us as Nikki and Nitesh, Srinath, Chris, and Vishesh. And if you've got any questions, please shoot them across on the chat window or send them across to Vinay, who's the organizer of this event. He'll pass the questions on to me. My next question to the panelists would be maybe more on what are some broader trends in this space? Space is a very broad sector, and do you see strong headwinds, tailwinds? What are some big trends that you see in this sector right now? Nikki?
Yeah, so as you were telling that space has become something trendy, because every day you see there is one or the other news related to space. So uh, there are old, let's say the companies that were already into space, and then we also have new set of startups like we have here a few of them, and then there are few of them who are working into different domains, which we all call them as a new space startups, right? So these are all there. So coming to particularly students who are right about to graduate, this has become one of the motivation factor. And they are looking at or more opportunities for themselves, either be part of one student whom I met recently, still in his final year, and he has submitted proposals to ISRO, and the discussions has gone very forward. So these are the things that we are looking for more and more to happen. So that it's very interesting. So yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question properly.
Yeah, it is absolutely, yeah. And Nitish, in your case, what are the broad push and pull factors that are driving you?
Yeah, so if you look at the overall space technology sector right now, there are visible trends. First is most of the satellite technology and the satellite constellations have over 5 to 6 years down the line have come out and they have their valid business cases more on Earth observation and this. So right now, the push from those operators right now is how to cut down the cost of the satellite or how to mature subsystems which they can take forward to even add much more value for the satellite. So let's say you have a power system. Is there a power system technology that can enhance uh, them to include much more sensors in their satellites? If they have more data to downlink, how they can get at a lower cost much more data down? And then obviously, how does the launch cost come in the next 5 years? So that's the uh, trend that we are seeing right now on the satellite operator one part. And then there are bigger technologies out there which would be defining, I think, in the next 5 to 6 years, where 3D printing systems or even subsystems or even satellites in space is more the defining. So I see those things as also coming out of academic institutes and even some of the space.
Srinath, what are some good trends that you're riding? What's working in your favor these days in this sector?
Yeah, I think the other two people already summarized it right. Space has become more of a common term now, even within the startup community, generally speaking. So the good thing is a lot of buzz around it. People are talking about it. A lot of people are trying to come in. A lot of people are trying to make investments. Every aspect of the ecosystem has actually grown. And so I can see a clear difference between 2017 when we officially started versus today, where at that point in time it was still sort of a slightly crazy idea, but now I don't think, maybe I've gotten used to the craziness, I don't know, but I don't see so many people who are thinking of a space startup as a crazy idea. So I think that is generally a good trend, but the specifics are always there, right? So you see a lot more people trying to find multiple use cases for space. So the whole angle of what you can do from space for Earth has become such a strong thing that it has almost become like one other sector to focus on to make life on Earth better, as
Yeah.
opposed to actually just an exploration part where you're going outside or something. So I think that is a big change, and we are definitely riding on that part as well. So yeah,
Yeah,
overall, I think it's really positive for space today.
yeah, that's a very good insight. Space is not just about leaving Earth and going to Mars or something. That's also nice, maybe, but you can also use a lot of space applications to improve Earth communications and so on. That's a very good insight. Chris, what are you reading in terms of trends and mega trends in this space?
Right. So from a close home, a lot of corporations, companies are interested in using intelligence gathered from space to kind of improve their businesses. This was probably not the case a year ago. Of course, not the case about 10 years ago. So a lot of thanks to the launch costs coming down and low cost satellite constellations, we have tons of data already to kind of build solutions on top of it. So, and it's kind of fairly cost effective for to use these things. So earlier, probably the country leaders and countries' governments probably use space-based solution. Now, pretty much smaller teams are also using it for their day-to-day business. That's one side, which is truly disruptive. I think, like so right now, probably like in about 2 3 years time, there'll be millions of teams using intelligence derived from like whether it's a imager or anything other than that. In the exploration front, there's still, it is capital intensive. There are 3 or 4 major companies working on that. Once they build the platform, potentially more and more things will happen. As early players in this industry, especially from a country like India, as entrepreneurs, our responsibility is to kind of kickstart if you may, like a little renaissance, or start building that Silk Route so that our future generations can actually truly go and explore and build mega solutions. So, so
Okay, how about you, Vishesh? Are you seeing a big trend among VCs interested in space tech, communications, and the broader area of aerospace?
Yeah, firstly, the sector may appear to be new in our part of the world, but it's fairly accepted in most of the parts of the world, specifically the US and Europe. Right? We've got, different reports. I think one of them had that about 160 different investments made. Someone called Space Angels, who sort of churns out some public reports from time to time that sort of shows the volume of investments and value of investments, and these are fairly high. So we're not trying to do something that has not existed before. Then it's a question of, is the audience or is the nation or is the geography that you're operating understand this and see the opportunity and then reconcile to the fact that it can be done out of India. I think 2 years ago it was a lot harder. I wouldn't say it's a slam dunk today, but I think people are taking calls and paying attention. Of course, a few success stories from some of these guys on this call, some of these guys outside of this call will propel that faster. You always need someone to take a leap of faith initially, and then there's more evidence to then sort of follow. If everybody starts waiting for evidence, then it's hard to sort of be in the lab.
That's a good point, Vishesh. And I'm very happy that we have 4 startups here who have taken a leap of faith and have jumped into this space, even though, as you mentioned, it may not be that popular in India at the moment as it is overseas, but they're riding definitely a very important wave. My next question to
Hi,
a
sir.
panelist
Sorry
would have
to
been
interrupt
about
you.
competition. In other words, who is a competition? How will you deal with them? But I see some other questions coming in from the chat room. So let's first of all thank the audience for sending across these questions. And let's take the most obvious one, which is how does all this tie to COVID? Is there any direct or indirect connection between the work you're doing and some COVID, maybe communication campaigns, technologies, etc.? Maybe a bit too early or not directly relevant, but if there's a good connection, feel free to jump in and say how your work is connected to anything to do with the bioviruses and things of that sort.
Hello, sir.
Any one of you, Nikki, maybe? Or, yeah?
We don't have anything that is there already, like particularly with us. But I did hear someone talking and discussing on how space science or space technology has some links with COVID-19, as in not for the problem, at least for the solutions. Like we are able to notice the pollution level with the help of satellites, like how much the pollution level has come down because of COVID-19. So that way we could connect space and COVID-19. And another one that I was looking at was it's like particularly this one. It's about biology and chemistry. So adding the space factor for this, I really don't know how to add it. But someone was actually asking, is there any way that you could combine all three: space, bio, and chemistry? Not sure. Probably people should come up with ideas.
Yeah, maybe speculation. Any Nitesh or Srinath, any you want to jump in there, or
Yeah,
early to
so
say?
I'll like to jump in there. So, well, yeah, directly not any solution, as I say, apart from what Nikita has mentioned for the COVID-19 one. But having this very niche area of technology in space where you need uh, your supply systems and even your laboratory setup and all that to be done in a clean room sort of thing. So, some of those can be definitely utilized for some of the manufacturing right now. And I think that's what people are trying to do, the government is trying to do that. I think that's I would say in a roundabout manner can definitely look at those solutions out there. But as a direct solution, yeah, there is nothing right now apart from
Yeah.
just monitoring the growth of it.
Yeah. Also, I did read about few write-ups by astronauts. So they used to say it's not because of COVID-19 that they were on quarantine, but all the time astronauts before they go to space, like they are supposed to be in a quarantine, and also once they return back to Earth, they are supposed to be in a quarantine. So most of the astronauts who've been to space or onto the moon, including Buzz Aldrin, they had written so many write-ups or the blogs wherein they have explained how they are spending time or what was their experience at that time, and how could people follow those things that they have done. So this is one way that again I could relate it to. We're all just like an astronauts who are not ready to go to space but ready to go outside under quarantine.
Yeah, that's a good point, Nikki. In fact, I think on your story, we carried an article on tips from astronauts on how to
Yes.
cope with isolation.
Exactly.
So they're sitting up there in this tiny little bubble, running around the earth, for days on end. How do they cope in terms of mental health, physical habits, spirituality, and so on? So yes, there definitely are some insights to get from there. Srinath, you're nodding your head. You want to say something, or
Yeah, I think I was just going to say what Nikita said. The other point was about, I wish at least like we were in a company that was in a slightly more advanced stage, because a lot of the equipment we use, we do use masks and stuff. We didn't have so much in supply that we could start giving them out or producing them. But there is an overlap of some of the gear that people use in space tech, particularly in the R&D and testing side, which is now something that can be used by doctors and other health services people who are on the field battling this, right? So I wish we were a company like that. Probably could have done something. In the sense, slightly bigger stage we were in, then we could have done something there. But yeah, I think otherwise other points were covered there.
Chris? Any angles you want to add, Chris and Vishesh? Anything over here, or should we go to the next
Well,
question? We only have. Yeah.
From a technology as a hardware or like physical support point of view, we are pretty much like the space technology as such. The country it's not that scalable, but from an application point of view, a company like ours, how we are planning to kind of contribute through our customers and government agencies is purely like it may sound a little simple, but it's an extension of one of our solutions. Map farm output and hubs to actual farms and consumption per capita. Early warning systems for supply shortages at the farm level to output level. Identify hotspots for lower quality of life and help concentrate aid slash government support or NGO support in that particular direction. These two are like two of the subset of our products. One is the bundle, which primarily looks at the agri output input output calculation model. The second one is a bundle which is calling it the livelihood rating system, which we are building for someone else. These things can be integrated in like planning a situation once a situation happened, and probably like doing that. From a physical point of view, I'm not the right person to comment on it, but as an application side, we are doing it.
Vishesh, any comments on?
No, I don't think I have anything more valuable to say than what my panelists have already said. Thank you.
Madan sir,
I was just
there's
wondering if you had
a few
examples
questions
of
coming in.
space technologies which have spilled over into other civilian areas, sort of. But that's another question. Okay, so we have just a bit more than 10 minutes. Let's take two more of these questions from the
Madan sir?
audience, which is how do we cultivate more interest in the general public in the space sector in general? So how do we get more people involved in space as a topic, space engineering, maybe aerospace design skills, satellite communication, and so on? So how do you increase the overall funnel for your companies in terms of audience, customers, maybe even investors? So Nitish, you want to start over there?
I think Nikita would be the best person right now to address this question, how to engage them.
Yeah.
I'll come back
Okay,
to that.
Nikki, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, so what we say for all the students and the community, or in fact the parents of the students who be part of our programs, is that space is not just space. It involves everything. As Srinath was telling, it includes a person who is good in mechanical or structures or propulsion, that's so different things. Let's say it's not only about engineering, because there were few students who asked me, I'm interested in becoming a lawyer, but I'm interested in space. So I said, yeah, why not you become a space lawyer? So there are few careers which are connected to space, which people or students or who are the youth who are planning to explore should explore these things like space law or space medicine. I have many of my friends, not in India but outside India, who are pursuing space medicine. It's something that's going to be really, really important in the future, right? And also, there were a few students who wrote to me from Dubai and other countries telling, what do you think of space agriculture? Of course, look, I mean, like we would have never thought, because everyone is now planning to go to other planets. So you need to think of food. So space agriculture is something that again someone could think of, and astrobiology is something again really, really important. So there are so many things, be it space architecture. There's so many things that we could connect with whatever we're doing. In case if you have interest in space, you connect to it. Be it photography, we have something called as astrophotography. So many things. So yeah, this is how you could involve whatever you're doing it. You can also connect it to space. Is what I would like to say.
Anyone else have any comments on how to evangelize the sector in general?
So Srinath here, just one thing I wanted to add to what Nikita was saying is, I feel like just a little bit of awareness of the fact that, first of all, so many things that we use today started off with their original designs in space. Many of the materials we use, many of the technologies use, GPS. How is GPS? Everyone knows that, today Google Maps is not an uncommon thing to use, but hey, there is a space angle to that whole problem that is how we're solving that problem, right? So that part, I think that awareness and telling people, general audience I'm talking about, that that Earth is also in space. It's not like it's really out there or
Exactly.
something.
People rule out Earth, like we have to during all our programs. One part of people asking probably confused question: Can I see Earth through telescope? That is some kind of question. But people do forget that Earth is part of space. We need to take care of Earth one way.
Exactly.
By the way, do you guys read science fiction? Do you have any recommendations of any science fiction writers? Like I used to read Robert Heinlein back in the day and stuff like that, but Asimov and whatnot. So very provocative thinking. In fact, there's a whole bunch of people talking about science fiction thinking. That we need to have some kind of science fiction thinking just to broaden your mind and think of bigger pictures. And these days, fiction and science are overlapping a lot in many cases. So these are also something that you can take a look at. So, Nikki, are you any books you would recommend for our audience to read about this stuff?
I don't have anything in particular, but I was going through this set of books by Lucy and Stephen Hawking, which are particularly for students to start off with astronomy and space, but particularly science fiction. I don't have much idea, but probably I could look into and share.
Madan,
Okay, we have. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to. So one of the things that got me into space very early on as a child was the books by Arthur C. Clarke, particularly the Space Odyssey series. I think I've read them multiple times, all 4 books. And I think they're lovely books to get started. And they're this genre within science fiction called hard science fiction, right? Where you don't start talking about like going beyond the speed of light or instantly you disappear here and appear there. It works within the laws of physics that we know. So it's very relatable in that sense. You're talking about like a future that's 40 years ahead, not 4,000 years ahead. So any of those books are actually, and these are some authors that they write really well, and you don't need to be like a science student or something to understand it. It's just like written for everyone. So Arthur C. Clarke books and Isaac Asimov books are definitely something I would recommend. Start off with the Space Odyssey series if you don't have anything else to start.
Yeah, you guys got a lot of time now, so this is a good time to read all these science fiction classic. I would add Ray Bradbury as another great science fiction writer in that space. Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left, so I thought we'll end with some maybe recommendations from our panelists on the startup journey. What are 3 recommendations you would give to our audience? Those who want to become founders, those who want to become entrepreneurs. What are 3 things you need to do to be a good startup, a good entrepreneur? What are some success factors? Lessons learned by yourselves, some things which stand out from our journeys. If you go back in time, what would you do differently the next time around? So these are some gyan, basically. Maybe 3 tips, one line each from each of you. Let's start with Nitish, maybe three learnings, 3 tips you want to share with the audience before we sign off.
Definitely is one of the things that you want to look, at least in this situation, is take care of, follow all the guidelines. That is topmost to all that. And in general, for early stage companies, right now, I think it's the time where you can utilize much more in your customer discovery. Almost everyone is at home. Go talk to them. What is your value? Get on a discussion board and then do it. So that's one of the key aspects I would say. Utilize this time well. And also one more area you would definitely want to look at is value engineering, where you are developing your product. I think right now would be the time you would have to look at your supply chain as well. Is there some product, some particular component you are trying to fit into your particular product, but there is only like 2 global suppliers out there? How do you manage? So those are some of the things I would say you can look early on and that.
Nikki, some tips.
Yeah, this is for very young people who have ideas on startups and who wants to start off. Take one step back and just look into what are the other startups that are already available doing it, because I see a lot of startups coming and saying mine is the first company doing this so and so in the space field, but there are so many already there. So before you say that, before you become a fool in front of people, do look into it if there are any already existing ones, and then tell if you're doing something unique. One is that, and always be open to learn something new. This is something that the young or the new entrepreneurs that are coming up, be very open to learn something new and take be ready to face all the risk, because space is all of risk. Yeah.
Srinath, some parting words of advice.
I would say 2 things. One is from a character standpoint, not necessarily only for space startups. Persistence is, I think, a very important thing. A lot of us, we already touched upon this topic, right? It is still in some ways a growing field. In maybe outside countries, it's already like an established field. So when it is a little new in some places, you might have to go that extra mile either to educate people or convince people that it is a business and you're raising money or hiring people, right? So that part will take a little more of persistence than usual, I think. A regular entrepreneur versus a space startup entrepreneur in India. That's number one. Number two, I find a lot of people coming into space tech are like, they're very savvy on the tech part, but it will be good generally to also have a little bit of a business sense. You don't need to, come with a degree or something, but just a basic sense of market and what you're trying to develop and whether it makes sense and how all of this adds together from a business standpoint, right? Because at the end, particularly if you're a for-profit startup, then you need to have that picture in mind to convince everyone from customers to, investors to your own employees when they ask you questions, right? So persistence and a little bit of business sense. And I highlight that part because a lot of space tech people tend to be a little more on the tech side than on the business side. So that has been at least my observation. So just wanted to highlight that.
Chris, 1 or 2 quick lines from you on lessons learned the hard way.
Right. The greatest advice for every entrepreneur wanting to work entrepreneur is don't do it. It's hard. But if you really want to do it, like Srinath said, you may probably exceptional at product thinking, you're probably exceptional at technology, but try to learn sales very early. Try to accept certain rejections on a daily basis. Prepare for that. Rest everything you can, hire resources and team members to solve. But try to do some kind of internship or start something or sell something very very early on, so that what is business. It's a rejection of a product, not a rejection of you, right? So yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Chris. And Vishesh, we're almost out of time, but we have to hear from you. A couple of quick words of advice.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to be incremental to what others have said, right? Specific to this sector, you'll have to understand that there needs to be a lot of groundwork done to getting the investor community close to being on the same page as you are. Investors understand customers, revenues, of course, technology as well. But for them, the monetization and business part of it needs to sort of be upfront. And hence, your ability to either articulate that very well or show evidence of that in your business is possibly going to help you get there faster and better. So I'm sort of picking up what Srinath said. I think that's sort of among everything else. If that's something that you can keep your eyes on, that'll be useful.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Nikki. Thanks, Nitish. Thanks, Srinath, Chris, and Vishesh. Thanks to the audience for spending a good 1 hour with us. Stay home, stay safe. And Vinay, do you want to give a vote of thanks or sign off with some next steps? What are you going to do? Other than, of course, someday in the future, buy us all a drink or a coffee in the future? Vinay. Okay, I guess he's doing some admin work at the back end. But thanks so much, everyone. Stay safe. God bless. And I'm sure Vinay will write a little article about this. And if you want to have to add anything else, just send across an email to all of us. So, everyone, thank you so much. Have a fantastic week ahead. Good luck. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.